Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Gay, and today I'm here with Chip Sigmon of the Sigmon Sports System Training Center. I'm glad to talk to Mr. Sigmon here. I talked with him before on the podcast, and so now we're having him back. So thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you, Jay. Appreciate you, all what you're doing. Congratulations on your podcast continuation. Great. And so I know you'll have continued success. But it's good to be back.
Yes. So how are things going with you? How are you doing?
Good, Jay. Thank you. Really blessed. I've been, with sports all my life, since 1978, teaching elementary school, middle school, high school, but coaching on the middle school, high school level. Then going with the University of North Carolina as assistant strength coach. Then from there, head strength coach, Appalachian State. From there, head strength coach, Charlotte Hornets NBA, Charlotte Sting WNBA. Then with Ortho Carolina, when the Hornets moved to New Orleans, I stayed here and then got up with Ortho Carolina, their sports performance program. I assisted with physical therapy. And then when after school the kids came, I had sports performance. And in the summer, of course, we had them all day. But dealing with physical therapy and working with it made me a better strength coach. And now when COVID comes along, we could get into it changed everybody. And so now I've been in my garage, I got 2.5 years. And I thought when things changed with COVID, I had to go into business for myself. Won't get into all the intricacies of how that happened. I'm thinking, well, how am I going to support my family? How am I going to make a living at 64, 5 years of age? And now I'm 67, and it's all worked out good. Couldn't be better. You got to work at it every day, but I'm out of my garage 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm here at lunch now, and I've got an appointment coming up at 4 o'clock with a basketball player, then at 5 o'clock with a wrestler, and I'm done for the day. But that's on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And I've started early this morning at 6:30, though. But then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, I'm at a private gym. A friend of mine owns a private gym. And so not many members, or if they do, it's private. So most of the people there are my clients. So athletes, I work with athletes and the personal training client, the businessman, businesswoman, whatever. So in a roundabout way, I know that took a long time, but I wanted to make everything clear what I do. It's going good. That's what keeps me busy day to day, going out and beating bushes. And so there's challenges in every phase of your life. And this is one of mine, but it's a challenge that is worth every cent that I earn and worth every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great story here. Talk about how did you get inspired to get into this profession? I mean, what jump started that? What made you want to pursue this actively? As you gotten to this point, throughout your career in this.
Man, it started a long time ago. Like I said, in 1978, I've always been interested in sports, in physical fitness, and physical conditioning. When I was at Appalachian State as an undergraduate, I graduated from there in 78, went back to be the strength coach there in 1984. Had a teacher, he's a psychology professor in a summer school. She said, raise your hand if you know what you want to be when you grow up. And I raised my hand, I want to be a strength conditioning coach. And they asked me, well, what's that? Because there wasn't that, how do you make a living at it? But you asked me, I've just always been interested in the physical aspects. The strength conditioning part of it, I knew from other strength conditioning coaches just starting out, that That's something I wanted to be a part of. Now, I will go back farther than that a little bit. In 1977, when I was at Appalachian State, I got into powerlifting and bodybuilding. I won Mr. North Carolina in 1977. And I competed in bodybuilding for about 6-7 years at a very high level. Competing my last contest with Mr. USA 1983. But when I was at Appalachian State, the baseball coach, and I just won it, and so word was spread throughout the university that I had won that. And he called me up and he said, Chip, I want you to come work with the baseball team. And I'm an undergraduate. And I did. The Appalachian State baseball team, Jim Morris, called me. And he was a visionary. Not many baseball teams were lifting weights then. And so we had a little universal gym at Appalachian State down in the basement where the gymnastics team practiced. And so I started, and word spread, and that's how I got involved. And I worked with the team. That year, we led the nation in home runs, won the Southern Conference Championship. And so I knew right then I was hooked. And so that's kind of how it got started. Other things, when I was at the University of North Carolina, I got the job at the University of North Carolina in 1982, that summer. And that's just where it started out. And from there, of course, going back to Appalachian State as the head strength coach. Little did I know in 1977 and 1984, 7 years later, I would be the first ever head full-time strength coach there. So it was a great honor. It's a school that I love dearly. It was the hardest. I left to be the Charlotte Hornets to be with the Charlotte Hornets head strength coach in 1990. But Jay, it's probably the hardest 6-7 years of my life starting that program. And I was the only strength coach. I didn't have any assistants for the first year. Right. So it was very challenging. We had a little tiny weight room down in the basement. And so, Michelle, would you run? I'm going to ask my wife to get something. The Golden Age of Strength Conditioning book out in the garage. I want to show you something, if you don't mind, Jay. And so that I had left out in the garage. And my garage now, just 20 feet away, is a weight room. Yeah. And, so I just got through. That's where I train my people on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so, thank you, sweetheart. So, and I met my wife, who's just Michelle, at Appalachian State while I was a strength coach. She was getting her master's in exercise science. So everything always works out. But I will tell you, Jay, and your listeners, the best you will look back, and I didn't believe this. If somebody would have told me this a long time ago, I'd say, the heck with you. Can't be. Because it was challenging. I remember having the flu, and I had it bad. I didn't think I could take another step without falling over when I was a strength coach there one afternoon. I was on my lunch. I said, I got to go lay down somewhere because I've got athletes starting about 2 o'clock all the way to 7 o'clock. I can't go on. But I did. And you look back, those things, and it's in every profession, but it just makes you stronger. So I know you're in college, Jay, correct?
Yes,
and
sir.
So those are the best times. There'll be so many challenges. What you're doing starting this podcast, again, awful proud of you. And continue where you don't think there's not going to be one listener. You keep going and you keep going. You've got to work hard. There's a process, but you've also got to work smarter. These are the best days. The most challenging days you will look back are your most rewarding days. And so it's so many lessons to be learned, how I just kept going and grew that program to what I believe it is today. in that little bitty weight room down in the dungeon. In the summertime, the bars would rust, because of the dampness of the basement. I would have to put up bags. I finally got a dehumidifier. I would have to wipe down the bars from rust. We didn't have a vacuum cleaner. I had to sweep out the carpet. Little things. I got somebody to donate a radio in there. But the little things, the little challenges. And now we won 2 Southern Conference football championships. We won a ton of track championships, both men and women's. Basketball. The athletic department at Appalachian State grew and grew, and look what it is today. And I think because part of it, the growth, the seed was planted by what we did, me and my assistants, and the staff, the support staff of all the coaches at Appalachian State when I was there. The athletic director, Jim Gardner. Mac Brown, who's the head football coach at University of North Carolina, now he hired me along with Jim Gardner, the AD, and friends, of course, with Mac Brown to this day. I'll show you the book that he also endorsed in a minute when the time is right. But so Jim Gardner has passed away. But so the relationships, I spoke at the National Strength Conditioning Association national conference at the Charlotte Convention Center this past January. And the first thing I did, I spoke about coaches to coaches, your relationship with players, your relationship to other coaches, your relationship to that coach other teams, your relationship with the athletic director or principal. Those are the relationships that will last forever. You may not get along with a particular coach, a particular teacher, a coworker. You still have to some way make that relationship, maybe not work, but make it to where, listen, I've walked into with an athletic trainer, I won't mention what team, saying, listen, I know you don't like me, but we must communicate. Okay. So he said, no, it's not like that. But there has to be a good line of communications and make every relationship as much as you can special, maybe in a bad way, hopefully in a good way. So I know I kind of maybe rambled a little bit, but those things are so important when as young as you are, Jay, and the things out in front of you has to grasp on those relationships. You has to grasp it and hold on to it and make every relationship as special as you can, because you never know who you're going to impact in life.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. That's wonderful. I believe in that truly. Relationships do last a lifetime. And it's important to build, lasting relationships and connections there. So what would you say, Chip, are some key principles for you when you train football players? What are some things that you make sure that that you're instilling, into their training sessions and regimens, that help them to produce on the field?
Yeah, you have to look at when I was at Appalachian State. Well, you've got a whole team,
right?
And I worked with every team. So you really have to go. I went to every head coach and tell me the goals. Tell me what you want as team. And then I would try to talk to every assistant coach. What does your players need? Now, the Charlotte Hornets, man, that's easy. Only got 13, 15 players. I can talk to those players individually. Now, with strength and conditioning coach, I worked with every team for the most part until the latter years. But in other words, you have the goals of the team and the goals of each individual. There are certain things that you and with the Charlotte Hornets, that was easy. I had a different program for almost every player. There are some basic things that you have to, the basic rules and fundamentals and guidelines of strength conditioning, where you have to have a good strength base first, and even before that, a hypertrophy base to build muscle. Then you have to have a strength base. Then with that can come explosiveness. The explosiveness, every sport explosiveness, especially at the collegiate level in the Olympic sports. Now they have a head strength coach just for the Olympic sports, or a director. Then they have coaches for each of those sports. For me, the first year and a half at Appalachian State, I worked with all sports. Then I had assistants to work with the other Olympic sports, and I worked with mainly football and men's basketball. So you have to. There has to be a different guidelines for individual goals, but basic guidelines for basic principles of strength and conditioning. But you overall, and what you're asking, Jay, what you overall from an individual standpoint. Let's say if that player needs to lose weight, he wants to gain muscle but lose body fat. You have to sit down. I think it's very important in today's collegiate athletics. You can, because you've got different coaches for every sport. You can sit down and say, okay, individual goals for individual players, and you're testing. And testing will tell you a great deal. In basketball, vertical jump, and even a broad jump, body fat percentage, pounds of muscle, pounds of fat, lean body mass, pounds of fat. So all that, we have the technology now to do that. So the individual goals plus team goals, critical.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned like now we have so much more access to this technology, the resources, all these different things. So what would you say, like, is the difference between how you start out, mainly, in your early years as far as, and then compared to now with all the knowledge and advancements you have? I mean, just that huge difference. Talk about that.
Yeah, the technology is incredible. You're exactly right, Jay. Back then, I would, from all teams, the skin fold caliber. And that's still critical, the skin fold, where you pinch the skin, you pinch. I try to pinch only 3 sites. The more sites you pinch, the more error. And when you're having to do a whole team, you can't have 5, 10 sites or whatever. So I always pinch 3 sites. And then I would run it through a formula. Well, the next time you come up, you may not get it just right. You got to be very specific, very consistent in your testing there. That's what we had to do. That's how we can still vertical jump. Now, I had my players, because the Vertex wasn't around a apparatus where you test vertical jump, we had them jump on the wall and chalk, place it, and then get their reach, then chalk, then the difference. Now, you've got the Vertex, which you can measure vertical jump easily. You've got the in-body, or even some teams may have a DEXA scan, very expensive, but most of the teams, the in-body, where you can give a lot more information on body fat percentage, as I mentioned, pounds of fat, pounds of muscle, so forth. But also, you've got the wearables now. I was just talking to a strength conditioning coach, high school strength conditioning coach yesterday, where you can track miles per hour. I heard Brian Kelly, the head strength coach head football coach at LSU the other day. We're getting faster, we're getting more explosive, we're getting bigger. Well, he said last year we only had 1 or 2 players per run 20 miles an hour. Now we have 10 or 15, I can't remember the exact number. That's because of the wearables. They're putting on either a wristband or patches, where now GPS is tracking those players and measuring speed, measuring recovery. All NBA teams, for the most part that I know of, I may be wrong on some, but I know a lot of NBA teams are using wearables in practice.
Right.
And they're tracking speed, they're tracking explosiveness, they're tracking recovery. Mike Curtis, head basketball strength coach, University of Virginia. Mike's great strength coach. He uses the wearables, and he will contact Tony Bennett, the head basketball coach. Coach, team looks a little tired. Recovery's not there. You can even measure recovery. You do that also, but you can measure sleep patterns. Hey, I know high school strength coaches who in the mornings, he will go in and look at the chart, who didn't sleep well that night. who didn't? You can get on them. Hey, you got to get more sleep. You can track nutrition. So it's incredible, the technology, and this has just come about the last 10 years. I can only imagine the next 10 years. This come about, the past 10 years has come about, this wearables. Now the next 10 years, it's going to be just, oh, wow, I can't comprehend what it's going to be. The technology has made so much difference in the strength conditioning field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it has. Because again, just the access to all the resources and then the advancements and knowledge that more than you did, 10 years ago now, and so that's only going to continue as things are researched and discovered. So I just found that really interesting about it. Now, what would you say, man, was the most craziest amount of weight or, that, or any, one of your clients or anybody, that you saw lifting or working on a machine that you're like, whoa, that's like you were just baffled by that? I'm curious.
I've seen a lot, Jay. Okay. People that have just amazed me, from soccer players, Jonah Long, that I wanted, probably one of the best athletes I've ever had the pleasure of working with. He played for a minor league soccer team here in Charlotte, North Carolina. You're talking about at Appalachian State, we had a football player from North Mech right when I got there. Back then in the early 80s, mid 80s, bench pressing 400 pounds, wow. He would rep out 405 for 5. Just incredible. Matt Josa, a swimmer out of Cal, I worked with about 2 years ago. He missed the Olympic trials barely, or he went to the Olympic trials, did not qualify for the Olympics. The most explosive human beings, probably the most explosive individual I've ever had the privilege of working with. Some of the Charlotte Hornets, I don't know if you remember Eddie, I believe his name was Eddie Robinson, who played with us, the Charlotte Hornets. He had a 44-inch vertical jump. I didn't worry about him jumping. I were worried about him coming down and how far he had to go down and without getting hurt.
Right.
So I've seen Alonzo Mourning, NBA Hall of Famer, All-Star, still great friends and love Alonzo to death. One of the most intense athletes I've ever been around. He was a gentleman when he walked off the court. What a finer gentleman. You won't meet a nicer individual. Help anybody. If when he could. When he walked on the court, if it would have been legal to kill somebody, he would have done it. Okay? He was that ruthless. But you won't meet a finer individual. And that's like Michael Jordan, too. Now, I worked with Michael at University of North Carolina. Now, Michael didn't put up a lot of weight and all that stuff, but he was one of the first ones in the weight room, one of the last ones to leave. He would always ask me, Chip, what can I do for this? Chip, what can I do for that? And once again, Michael, gosh, you don't hear the great things that Michael does off the court for people. You just hear on the court. And Michael was a ruthless tyrant on the court, but he had to be. You have to be at that level. And that's one of the reasons he was so successful. So I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of individuals. Dino Hackett, Appalachian State linebacker, when I was on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. Just so intense on the field and in the weight room. John Settle, running back. We had some people putting up, some great numbers. But 400 pounds, you better be able to rep it. You better be able to clean over 300 pounds. I mean, you've got now athletes, and you see them. You talk about the NFL all the time. You've got over 300-pound athletes running sub 4.8s in the 40. I mean, it's incredible what they're doing now, because we know from a scientific standpoint, we've got sports scientists. Dr. Michael Stone, he was with me at Appalachian State, professor at Appalachian State, and Dr. Harold O'Brien. Talk to them all the time. Dr. Stone is at East Tennessee State University, over the Olympic sports there, and a professor. And we talk about it. I just talked to him the other day, and Dr. Stone talking about we really only scratched the surface. We think we've gone a long way, we have, but there's more. The explosiveness is the key. And one of the things I talked at the National Strength Conditioning Association about, the national conference this past January, is complex training, going from a weighted implement to a non-weighted implement to improve through post-activation potentiation, improve explosiveness. So it's incredible what athletes are doing today, and I've been very blessed to see some amazing athletes in my 45 years of strength conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just to be in that position. I can't imagine. I mean, just to work with all the athletes that you work with, people that you work with, and it's, especially if it's something that you love doing, and I tell people all the time, if you're passionate about what you do, it makes it that much better, that much easier for you, so that's one thing I believe as well. But Chip, we appreciate you coming on the podcast today, talking, personal strength and conditioning, and how you got into that journey, and just continuing throughout. We appreciate your insight on these particular matters, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, Jay. It's been great. Real quick, because I know you got a time limit, but what I had my wife go get the book, The Golden Age of Strength Conditioning, and you can go to Amazon, or you can go to Core Media Group, coremediagroup.com. It's got $15, Amazon or the Core Media Group, somewhere in there. But it's a history of strength conditioning. And so if you are a strength conditioning coach or interested in it, I think it's always good to know about the history of your profession, how it got to where it is. The golden age of strength conditioning, something I'm very, very proud of. And so, Jay, also proud of you for what you're doing. Thanks again for having me on. And it's been my pleasure, sir.
Of course, yes, as always. And make sure you guys, if you are interested, check out Chip's book there, The Golden Age of Strength and Conditioning. I'm sure that's a great read. So make sure you guys go check that out. And thank you, Chip, again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Great, Jay. Thank you, sir.
Of course.